Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Good morning, good morning. Okay, good morning. My name is Andrea Simintov, and you are listening to Pull Up a Chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I'm very happy to be speaking with you this morning. I'm very happy to be speaking with anybody this morning. I'm speaking, if it sounds a little weird today, we are speaking through swollen lips, a swollen face. I had terrible dental surgery this week, and I am with you because I love you so much, and I'm so happy to be here. And so if I sound kooky, if you can see the big lumps under my eyes, let me know. Drop me a note. And let me say good night. It's late in the U.S. and in Canada, and it's very early in the United Kingdom and in Germany. Good morning, Indonesia, Norway. Turkey is listening in. Turkey, drop me a note. I want to know what you think about what's going on with Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Belgium. And of course, I think I mentioned the UK. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk about getting ready. We're getting ready up to the days of awe, and it affects all of us. It's not just the Jewish New Year. It is indeed the new year. Big things are happening. Plans are taking place. COVID or not, despite COVID, because of COVID, big stuff is happening. We're going to talk about it. And if you're in the chat room, okay, IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, there is a chat room, and you just say, listen now. You do not have to talk, but just drop me a note. Tell me where you're listening in from, and that would be a very exciting piece of information for me. We're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about what's going on with the United Arab Emirates and Israel. Is it something to be ignored, something to be celebrated? Is anybody as curious and as baffled and as hopeful as I am? Let's talk a lot about it. Andrea Simintov, pull up a chair, and I'll see you on the other side.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
And we're back. Andrea Simintov, pull up a chair in Holy Jerusalem, speaking to you from Holy Jerusalem. If I sound a little bit off, it's just I can't get over what my face looks like. It's like I have a golf ball under my eye, and my face looks like I was punched there. And I'm just, if anybody can be more grateful for the masks we're wearing during this Corona time, that's me. I'm thrilled to pieces to be wearing a mask, and I'll be wearing one up to my forehead. Oh, good morning. Australia has joined us. Very nice to see you. So during the break, the engineer, he asked me, because he is really my number one fan. I have to tell you, I pay him cash each week, and he says, I really love your show. Anyway, he says, what are we going to talk about? And I realized, I come out with this master plan, but then I think to myself, you know what? Let's swing it. We're together. For those of you who are up this early in the morning on this side of the world, and those of you who are up that late on that side of the world, hey, We're all free spirits. So either you're downing your last cup of wine for the day, or your first cup of coffee, and we're in it together. So we are indeed approaching the days of awe. And a lot has been going on in the world. And you know what? There's a lot of good stuff out there. This is not the time to remain complacent. This is not the time to sit and say, it all stinks. It's never going to be good. Remember, when you open up the pages of the Washington Post, the New York Times, Haaretz, the Jerusalem Post, Al Jazeera, I can go on and on and on and on. Their job is to outshock the paper next to them. Their job is to keep you bleak and worried and frantic and somehow in a turmoil. They don't care about you. They don't care about your belly and your heart and the futures of your children. Is it future of your children? Futures of your child? Okay. You know, this Parsha, we're at the end. And I know I always do Parsha at the end. We're all over the place. But we must start this week by asking the question, why does this week's Parsha, Torah portion, Ki Tavo, start with the appearance of the first fruits and unrestrained joy and thanksgiving? I don't get it. We're getting ready. We're going into the land. Moshe is about to die. We're being told, sin begets sin, bracha begets bracha, blessings beget bracha. And suddenly we're talking about first fruits? Seems kooky. And yet, there's a lesson in what we call bikurim, these first fruits. The Torah, and remember, this applies to all of us. The Torah is the blueprint for the world. Okay? I'm not talking only to my fellow Jews. I'm talking to my fellow human beings, God-loving, God-sharing citizens of the world. The Torah is always supposed to be new in our eyes. So that every day when we start out, every day when we have expectations of our day, every day when we try to make it a day of meaning, it should be approached with eagerness, with a keen desire. There's a pomp and a ceremony connected with the bringing of the first fruits. There was a fundamental truth to this, but the farmer bringing his fruits, he brought them every year. Like, here I am again, Bob. Here are the fruits again. No, that's not what he says. Here I am, check off the checklist. Exactly the opposite. He says, I'm not going to bore you with the Hebrew. He says, I'm going to translate. I am affirming to God that I have come to the land God swore to our fathers to give us. In saying I, he's saying me, I, and not my forefathers. We're affirming that we can't take God and the Torah for granted as something that was just bequeathed to us by our ancestors. For those of us living in the land, oy vavoy, if that's how we approach it. It's with this consciousness that should always spring within us, especially now. Bikurim, the gift of the first fruits, teaches us that we should not allow ourselves to be dulled by custom, bored with tradition, stymied in habit. We should all receive with gladness and wonders the lessons that this season is about to offer us. And above all, we should allow the new harvest of awareness. The word awe can be found in the word awareness. The awareness of God, the awe of God, and his Torah to blossom and ripen within us. Before we even get to the meat of this, I just have to throw this out. I came across this adorable, this treasure of a lesson, and it's about a treasure. And it says, when a treasure is hidden in a courtyard, the only way to get to the treasure is, what do you have to do? You have to enter the courtyard. Repentance stemming from love, versus fear. There's all kinds of repentance. Oh, I'm terrified. I'm terrified of the burning. What is it? The fires of hell, Dante's Inferno, something that doesn't exist in Judaism. But when repentance that stems from love is like a priceless treasure, which can only be obtained by first entering the courtyard, crossing over the threshold of fear of punishment. If you're standing outside, you're not going to have a chance to reach the treasure. I like that very much. And the other thing, in order to get moving here, oh, my nose is itching. I think they hit my sinuses. I'm not joking. I got to tell you what I went through yesterday. It was brutal. All for me, all for us. Okay. Someone else said to me that the light at the end of the tunnel only appears to those who are experiencing the tunnel itself. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel if you haven't been in the tunnel. Okay, so on a personal note, just in case my speech is slurred today, LN, who's listening in, knows all about this, okay, because we actually speak during the week. I'm having this terrible dental work done, and I'm trying to find the Torah. I'm trying to find the glory. I'm trying to find the good. Help me with this. I'm having implants done. I'm having, oh my gosh, I had bone grafting this week, and I thought I felt really fine. I woke up this morning. It looked like I had been hit by a semi-trailer, like with golf balls and the pain, and I'm sleeping with bags of peas on my face. It was bad. It's really, really bad, because especially for someone like me who's a fashion model in her real life. Okay. Crazy days ahead, my friends. The Yomim Norim are coming, and a lot of us, I know not just here in Israel, but all over. Send me your notes, what you think you're going to be doing in these days to come, because a lot of us are not going to be attending synagogue, business as usual, because it's scary. Our synagogues, where so many of us are what we call a once or twice a year Jew, and we look forward to Rosh Hashanah, to get there, to see those who we haven't seen in a year, to catch up. And that's sort of been taken away from us. And I have to tell you, last week I spoke about Ronnie. He went, my husband Ronnie. I just got advice from another drug addict on the site. Take codeine. You got it, babe. Anyway, he bought a chauffeur, and I could see it was like really sad. I was trying to make it upbeat. I'll make all our favorite foods, and maybe we'll blow the shofar in the hallway. We'll send a WhatsApp to everybody in the building. But it just wasn't the way it should feel. And suddenly we received an invitation by somebody in our synagogue he's just like this great guy who's creating a minyan, a quorum of prayers. We're going to meet at 6:30 in the morning in a playground, all of us masked, and he has the permit. 12 men maximum, and their wives are invited. 6:30 in the morning, and we will be able to pray as a group. And this guy, knowing this guy, he's going to keep it to 12. So suddenly, our prayers were answered. We're davening with other Jews. We're going to be praying and ushering in the new year, and I'm very excited. So, itching my eye, itching my poor disgusting skin. We'll get to this Rosh Hashanah business after. Stay with me. I'm flipping through my notes. I like that, like where this tight. Oh, yeah. Okay. Engineer, how much time do I have left? Because I just want to, I see, 2 minutes. Wow. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute then. Good news. I came across a good news site, not a joke. MSN Good News. I absolutely loved it. If you go into that site, I'll try to get the link. Drop me a note. Andrea at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I will put the link up. Every day when things feel bleak, you go into this website and you see wonderful things that are taking place in the world, most of them in North America. Nevertheless, I loved it. So I just wanted to read this very quickly, not from then, an Israel good news story that I want to share. It's all over the Israeli net, but a cousin only in Israel. Chava is a soldier who has been serving up north. I got this from several sources. Can't quote where it came from. Let me read fast. Chava is serving up north. Last night she told me her group finished working a little before 10 p.m. They called a shawarma place, sandwiches, to order a late dinner. The owner told them that the restaurant was closing in 5 minutes and it was not taking any more owners. The owner then asked, "Hey, are you soldiers?" And when he heard that they were, he opened up the kitchen, told them to WhatsApp the order and it would be ready for pickup. The soldier told the owner they couldn't leave the base, so the owner said, "No problem, we'll deliver the food." He delivered the food. Place is called Ramat Yashi. All right, another Israel story. Andrea, I'll see you on the other side.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with Love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with Love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
Modesty at the beach? It isn't just about body image. It's about feeling good. Modest swimsuits, so we don't get burned by the sun.
So we won't get ogled by strangers.
So we'll feel free to express ourselves without the need to expose ourselves.
Let Marcy Modest help you to cover up what you want, how you want.
Made in Israel.
Visit marcymodest.com. That's MARSEA modest.com.
And get a 10% discount on your first purchase.
Okay, sorry, this is Andrea Semitov. Pull up a chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I was just telling the engineer during the break, he asked me how I was. I think last time we spoke, I was back in quarantine. I'm just always back in quarantine. I never leave my house, and I leave for 7 seconds, and I suddenly get a notice. I've been exposed. And so I realized I'm opting out of this COVID thing. I've had enough. I get it. Everybody says, "Oh, we're going to go down into lockdown. Oh, we're not going to get locked down. Oh, the schools are open. Oh, the schools aren't open." Forget it. Make your decisions without me. I have enough to do. I just bought one of those Wonder Mops online. I just got a note. I can't even do this show now. I'm getting so excited about my Wonder Mop that I'm going to pick up. So you guys can finish the show, and I'm laughing. And Larry, who's listening in, he's in the chat room. He is giving me very, very dangerous advice on how to handle my swollen face and my aching jaw and my teeth. But he really is funny. And yeah, Larry, it's a compliment. You're a shriek. You're killing me this morning. All right. So let's see. Oh, I was really excited. I've been ordering things online, which I know as somebody who's very just aware and trying to be socially conscious. I get very guilty when I order something online because we want to honor our mom and pop stores and places that are really struggling to stay open. But I couldn't get my camp t-shirt. I went to camp 50 years ago? Even more than 55 years ago, I was in camp. And every year we have a camp week that they do on Facebook, and I'm the only one who didn't have a camp shirt. So I ordered my camp shirt and I went. And I have to tell you, it was very scary there. There were lines around the block. I told you, I live between two Arab villages. And I got very, very nervous of COVID because everybody's in a mask. But the rates of COVID are extremely high in the Arab communities and in the Haredi communities, the ultra-Orthodox communities. And I was very impressed. Everybody was masked, but it's scary because every time I come home, I get a notice. So I realized very few people were speaking Hebrew there. If you want to get Arab Ulpan, come to my post office and just hang out. You'll be counting, you'll be listening to numbers, you'll be chatting, you'll be switching days. And I walked out with my camp t-shirt. All right. Good news. On the good news front, came across this article. I cannot be more excited than to share you. It was a story about an 18-year-old girl. I can't get over it. Ultra-Orthodox. We call them Haredi. You know, when they translate it into the paper, it sounds so like dorky. Ultra-Orthodox. And suddenly, I can't even remember her name. It's funny. Anyway, I'll get her name. I'll get it right. Anyway, this ultra-Orthodox girl, Tova Safranai, 18 years old. She's married. She lives in a mushav, which is an agricultural village not far from Jerusalem. She spends her days, morning, noon, and night, providing warmth, love, attention, clothing, food, advice, an ear to youth at risk. I have been trying to reach her. From what I understand, she does not speak English. This girl, you couldn't get, an 18-year-old girl who is raised, forgive me for, making a, oh gosh, I'm losing the English. Help me, LN. When you make an assumption, I would have thought that she's a Baal Teshuva, somebody who grew up not religious and became religious, but not at all. She grew up in an extremely Haredi home, but the rare exception to at least the public relations rule. She was told to befriend everyone. Everybody is of value. Everybody matters. And this woman absolutely devotes herself morning, noon, and night. Her husband is also apparently very special guy, because you know what? Not a lot of guys, men, women, you have a partner, you're starting married life. She wasn't married at 14. They kind of want to spend time with her. He's very involved. And here she explains, this Tova Safaranai, I was always drawn to it. My parents say that from the time I was a little girl of 4 or 5, when I saw boys and girls who lived on the street, cast off, drugged, I would say they are elevated souls. I understood that there was no way that they ended up on the streets by choice. This is her quote from the Hebrew, or because they were they were bad or misunderstood. They had ended up on that street, and I could do something. And so when she was a little girl, she was just 16, she would start making sandwiches that she paid for by herself. I don't even know if there was a place to donate money. Anyway, I'm sharing this with you because there's good stuff going on. And you would think that a girl like this wouldn't understand about the real underbelly of society. And I was shocked as I read the article. Even my face turned red when she described some of the things that she sees and hears, the vulgarities and the horrors and the things that are happening to our youth. And what I found the most fascinating was the interviewer from a particularly secular newspaper asked her, did you ever doubt your faith when you see this? Because she says there is no hell. There is only love. That's when she became my soul sister. There is no hell. There is only love. And she says to the question, did you doubt your faith? And Tova's answer is, not for a minute. I believe wholeheartedly the Torah is not mistaken. The interpretation that was added to it over the years is mistaken. The Torah was given to us so that we would be better people, so we will possess virtues, we will be good to one another. In the end, I come back all the time to love thy neighbor as thyself. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love every person as such. Don't cast them out. Don't distance people. I loved her. And as I said, I just ended up this other story with this restaurant owner up north making shawarmas, bringing them to our holy soldiers, not accepting there's so much we can do. Okie doke. If you want to know more, I'll send you the link. Andrea at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Andrea, link to Tova, the Tzaddikah, the holy woman. Andrea, the link to some other crapola I talk about. Okay, came across a video. I said that this is the awe show in my Facebook announcement. It's the awe show. It's the love show. Let's say awe, love. A marvelous talk by a Rabbi Zippel. First time I ever heard of Rabbi Zippel. I Googled him. He's all over the map. He is a rabbi, a Chabad rabbi, working out of Utah. I mean, that is like the belly of the LDS community, the Latter-day Saints, Mormons. And I saw some videos, how well he works with them. He really likes them. Okay. So anyway, he was working in a school. I don't know where it was. I got this tape. It was kind of like out of context. I didn't see the beginning of the interview, but he was meeting with Jewish children, Jewish teens, adults, young adults, who had no experience with Yiddishkeit, with Judaism, absolutely no connection to it. They only knew that they were Jewish because it was written on their applications. And so one of the girls says, a new girl joined our group. Would you like to meet her? And he says, yes, sure. He had a bag of snacks. He often starts his meetings with them, giving out kosher snacks and explaining what is kosher. And kosher has so much more to do than with just food. And this girl came in extremely aggressive, a very East Coast New York girl. And she says, I don't think you want to talk to me. I'm not your kind of girl. I'm not your kind of Jew. I'm a lesbian. And so he says to her, I didn't ask what you do. I asked, who you are. She said to him, I'm not like the others. You don't want me in the group. And, he says, look, you don't have to come back here for anything. Coming, joining our group, it's a privilege. But don't define yourself. One doesn't say, I am a lesbian. I am a homosexual. I am a heterosexual. I am a vegetarian. I am a diabetic. I am a Republican. I am a Democrat. I am a victim of sexual trauma. These things don't define, according to this Rabbi Zippel. I loved it. These things don't define who we are. They define what we do. What does it matter who you slept with? You want to know who you are? You're pure, authentic, a genuine gem, because God is found within you, within me. That is who we are. Now, you want to talk about what we do? We can talk about it until the sky is purple, green, and orange. I like what he said. We are holy vessels that carry God within ourselves, every one of us. Imagine if all of our interaction is based on that. That's the center. Now, he's not saying that if we experience horrific trauma in our life, sexual violence, forget about it. But only God gets to define who we are, because he put us here in the world to create, to spread love, and to prosper. I don't know about you guys. That's what today is about. Today is a COVID-free day, an anger-free day, a rage-free day, a love-filled day. Andrea Simantov. When we come back, let's talk Torah.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
Okay, we're back. Andrea Simento, pull up a chair, IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I'm just going through these notes here, and I'm thinking, you know what? I think we have like 2 more shows before Rosh Hashanah, so I'm going to go light on the Rosh Hashanah stuff. Let's just say reform, bless us, individual community, blah, blah, blah. Okay, just stay with me on this. Okay, yeah, we got that. We'll get to more Rosh Hashanah stuff later. But anyway, start your prayer list. Start thinking about how you want this year ahead to look. It's not that far away. Okay, so let's talk a little Parsha because we're winding down. We're winding down the year. And my gosh, isn't it good to do a COVID-free show? I'm only speaking out. You know, they say they talk about both. They say he spoke out of both sides of his mouth. You've heard that? Well, Andrea's only speaking out one side of her mouth. The other side's on fire. Okay. All right. Ki Tavo, the Parsha, the Torah section. Ki Tavo. Throughout this final oration of Moshe Rabbeinu, he constantly emphasizes that when the Jewish people, they finally cross the Jordan and enter the land of Israel, there are additional commandments and behavior patterns that will be demanded of them. Remember, there's only so much you can do in the midbar, in the desert. I mean, there's things that have to do with planting, with agriculture, with land, with your home, your 4 walls that you've built of stone or wood that you could not do in the desert. And so now it's going to be more stuff. And Moshe reiterates that the land of Israel is bountiful and beautiful, blessed and holy. But he warns them that this is a venue that makes demands of its inhabitants. It's very, I mean, I do step outside of my written notes very often to say that sometimes I get a chill when I realize that how so many years later the prophecy just washes over us because we're living it. You know, the rabbis of the Talmud, you know, they reinforce this idea by stating that the land of Israel indeed inflicts growing pains upon those who come to live there. We have a joke here. You know, when I first made Aliyah, came to live here, and said, oh, I lived here 4 years. I lived here 5 years. Somebody said to me recently, I've served 30. Okay. Israel is always going to be a place of challenges. It's always going to be a place of problems. It's been ordained. Difficulties, situations that will have to be overcome. But it's also the land where the eyes of Hashem, so to speak, are always upon it throughout the year, and that living in such a land is filled with great opportunity and indeed every day a sense of mission. You wake up any day living here in our land, you know you're alive, you know your tasks are set before you. The topography, can't say it with this post-surgery mouth. The topography is rough. The weather patterns, very rough. We are in the middle of a unprecedented Hamsin, a heat wave. And yet, there's such bounty. There's such prosperity. It's crazy. On one hand, it's impossible. On the other hand, it's natural. What does it all mean? The land is subject to the behavior and the attitudes of the human inhabitants. It's the land of ultimate, unprecedented free will and freedom of choice that God has endowed human beings with. Moshe constantly reminds the generation that it's about to enter the land of Israel, the land of obligation, the land of duty to God, the land of Torah. This is going to be the key to our success and indeed the longevity in the land of Israel. You know, awkward to talk about, hard to talk about. We're now participating in the third major effort of the eternal Jew to live in the land of Israel throughout this impossibly long exile. We've always wanted to return here. Indeed, it's been designed to return here. You know, I'm going to get into my galut, my diaspora speech. Being in the diaspora is an acknowledgement of the shame of having been spit out of the land. We're supposed to build Israel in our society, okay? Many of the reasons why the first two attempts to establish such a permanent Jewish society have failed. But unfortunately, a lot of that rationale is still present. You know what? We still are dealing with idolatry. We're still dealing with a lack of national pride. It's difficult to imagine that we would have learned absolutely nothing from our history and would indeed, God forbid, actually repeat the past errors of the first and second temple times. Realizing that the challenges that face us are great, we still say, bring it on. There are a lot of distractions and obstacles that face us in trying to create and indeed maintain this Jewish state that Moshe Rabbeinu envisioned centuries ago. And yet if we look back at just how far we've come, against all odds, it's impossible. There's no reason Israel should exist. There's no reason that Jews should even populate the earth. We have to realize that it's still within our grasp to fulfill the words of Moshe as they appear in this week's Parsha, this week's Torah reading. We live in a special place. We live in special times. As such, we have to rise to the occasion and remember, as that young girl, Tova, believes on her nightly outings, looking for the lost souls. We're a special people. We merely have to rise to our heaven-ordained challenge. You know, the Parsha is called Ki Tavo, and the word ki in Hebrew, it has a number of meanings. You know, Hebrew is a crazy language. There's a lot of layers to it. It's a very small vocabulary. From what I read, if I'm not wrong, English has something like 10 times as many words as does Hebrew, which is kind of sad since I'm losing my English. It's not really being replaced with Hebrew. So here, you know, the meaning most often is if. It means if. It also can mean when. The Hebrew word, when used in a certain sense, says, you know, when we will come back, when we will live here. The land of Israel is acquired for all of us through pain and sacrifice. Those who are making Aliyah, I'm telling you now, be ready for the challenge, but it's a challenge of a lifetime. It's a challenge of me. If you want, there is no, what is the word? It's no panacea anywhere. It's not going to be wherever you are. If you're living in the States, if you're living in Europe, you're dealing with all kinds of problems. If anything that this current pandemic has taught us, there's no escape. The Parsha makes it clear, the portion of the Torah, that the relationship between the people and the land of Israel is based only upon mitzvot, the commandments. The first section of this Parsha deals with the commandments, as I said at the beginning, regarding the bikurim, the first fruits of the season. and the commandments requiring tithing of produce and the redemption of it in coins, that everything should feel new, that we open our eyes in the morning the way we're opening our eyes to this new year, that we're opening our eyes to this new day and saying, it's all good. The laws regarding the land of Israel and the produce are meant to remind us of the uniqueness of that land and indeed the inherent holiness of living here. If the Jews somehow treat the land just another country, just another location, similar to Greece, was a quote I once heard, their stay in the land will be questionable, or could we even dare to say impermanent? Just as the Jews are not allowed by God to see themselves as just plain folk, we're accused of arrogance. It's not true. We're not allowed to see the land of Israel as a place on the map, just like any place else. Zionism learned the hard way that Uganda is not the promised land for the Jews. You know, the difficulty in treating the land of Israel as a unique location lies in the practical tasks of, every day our national responsibilities, government, social life, the fact that I have to go to the post office and pick up my Wonder Mop, But if we remember to try and live a supposedly normal life in a country and location that the Torah defines for us as being abnormal and unique, we have to remember that this represents the greatest challenges facing the Jewish people in today's world. Today, hopefully, that this should be the last attempt, the last holy attempt to settle the land, to celebrate the land, to exist in the land, and indeed, hurry up, quicken the coming of the Messiah. This is Andrea Simantov. Pull up a chair, wishing you a Shabbat Shalom U'Mivorach from Jerusalem.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.